have to really work hard, and if I want to do something, I probably shouldn't do it. If I want to stay in bed or whatever, do you know what I mean? I need to do the opposite, and if I don't want to do something, I need to do it, if that makes sense. So for me, action is like forcing myself out of bed this morning at 6 a.m. to go and do Pilates, which was like, I didn't want to do that. I actually thought, I sat there, I picked up my phone, and I know this may seem more kind of like, oh, she's doing Pilates, yada yada, but you know, if I don't do these things, it gets to a stage where I'm really desperate and I'm in real danger, right? And I picked up my phone and I thought about sending a message to the woman that takes Pilates and saying, I'm really sorry, but I'm really unwell, right? And I started to type it out. And I was like, no, you've got to go and do the thing you think you can't. And so action, it doesn't always have to be like a massive, huge thing for me. It's like, it can be tiny. And the other thing that when I talk about acts of service, it's, a lot of the words in there were community and connection. And I really do believe that connection is the key to all mental health issues. So I always say that the thing that all mental illnesses have in common is that they work by isolating you. They tell you you're a freak, they tell you that you're alone, and they tell you that no one's going to understand what you're going through, right? And that's just untrue. Not only is someone out there going through what you're going through, not only does someone understand what you're going through, but someone's going through what you're going through. So you have to work really hard to connect. Connection is the key. There's another saying, which is that connection is the opposite of addiction. So I'm talking in very sort of addiction recovery based things, but I think you can broaden this out for everything. And I always remember hearing a man who was he was a former heroin addict, and was asked how in the early days did he bring himself back from the brink. And I always remember, and this thing is always stayed with me, he said he got up and he made tea for people, at 12-step meetings, or he would make tea for his flatmates. Do you know what I mean? He would do the cleaning, he would just keep himself busy. And he said that it's very, very difficult to feel useless when you're being useful. And that for me is the action bit, right? Because you don't have to be feeling great, but you can be doing great things. Does that make sense? And eventually the two meet up and you do start to feel good again. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but so for me, the hope is the continuing to do the things day after day after day, even when you don't want to, especially when you don't want to. That's the key thing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, that resonates so much. I think that's a really powerful, reflection. That it is the small things. It is finding the energy to do those kind of day-to-day things, and actually the momentum that can build, and that sense of, as you said, of connection and service is so powerful. Was that kind of thinking connected to when you set up Mental Health Mates as a charity? Is that something that kind of was kind of an inspiration behind that?
Well, I set up Mental Health Mates, which, just to briefly explain, is a peer support network of where people go for walks and they talk together without fear of judgment. So it's not therapy, it's peer support. But when I started that up 5 years ago, I was really desperate and I was suicidal. And what I was doing, and I didn't realize I was doing it, was that I was trying to connect with people. And because I heard so much about the 1 in 4, but the 1 in 4 people who would experience mental health issues each year, but I never felt that I ever met anyone who admitted to being the 1 in 4. And I knew intellectually that there were other people out there who were experiencing the same things as me, but I just never kind of could find a place to meet them. And So I set up Mental Health Mates. I put on Twitter that I'd be at a certain point and if place and on a certain date, which was Valentine's Day 2016. And if people wanted to come along, we could go for a walk. And to my surprise, 20 people showed up. And, now they're everywhere, and people set them up for themselves. It's about, getting some agency. Action actually sometimes is proving, we feel so what's the one thing you feel when you are in mental health crisis, you feel powerless, you know. And for me, setting up mental health mates, and I didn't even know I was setting up mental health mates, I just wanted to be something. It was a way of getting some power back over something that's hope, over something that seemed hopeless, if that makes sense. And you know, it was accidental. It was totally accidental, and I'm thrilled that it still exists. And I hope that some people here might look to it as a resource, or even think about setting up their own one, because for me it really was, if I look back on, you know, decades of mental illness from childhood, as I'm sure many people here are, you know, we know that many people will have experienced, if they're going to experience mental illness, it will have presented by the time they're 14. So and I'd tried all sorts of different things, do you know what I mean? But for me, the real first step to proper recovery was mental health mates, and it was taking some action, you know, it was hope through action. And that led to all sorts of things. It led to me meeting Jake. It led to me, you know, running the marathon for Heads Together. It led to me getting sober, basically, you know, and taking back control of my life. And it's ultimately what's led to me sitting here with the great privilege of chatting to all of you.
That's lovely. And I think there's a lovely connection there, that action inspires further action, and actually there can be this momentum, this snowball of you know, making one positive decision of an action can lead to so many more really down the line. I think, I mean, you've already touched upon this a little bit. One of the questions that came in from the participants who are here today, from audience, is what was the turning point for Bryony that made her think that actually it's okay to write about your experiences? They said, I absolutely love her work and have recently bought Gloriously Rock Bottom to read next. So someone who's obviously really being inspired by what you're putting out there. And just it's an interesting question. Was it mental health mates, that turning point, or
the turning point was I'd written about my obsessive compulsive disorder, that you know, for long periods of the time I couldn't leave the house from when I was about 11. And really the point where I decided I needed to write about it wasn't like I was inspired, or there wasn't actually, but it was, I was desperate to meet to hear from other people like me, to know that I wasn't mad, or I was mad and that was okay, to know crucially that I wasn't bad. I don't know if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And when I was a jobbing journalist on a newspaper, and I wrote about my experiences with this obsessive compulsive disorder, pure O, and it was almost like saying, if I put this down on paper and the police didn't come and get me and cart me away, you know, it was like I was trying to get it out, and I was trying to go, yeah, that's something in black and white, literally in black and white. And you know, unbeknownst, that was the only sort of inspiration for it really at the time, was that I needed to find other people like me, and I did. And I had no idea of what it would lead to. You know, for me it was another piece that I was writing, do you know what I mean? But it was more than that, because it was out of desperation. But it's led to this whole amazing kind of thing. It's led to me getting better, essentially, you know. It's led to recovery. And because if I hadn't spoken about it, if I hadn't put it out there, there's no way I'd be, I mean, I wouldn't be here sitting now talking to you. I dread to think where I would be, if I would even still be alive, you know. So yeah, that was the turning point for me. But it wasn't like instantly I was like, oh, I'm better now, you know, like all of these things. It's been a kind of a journey, and I'm sure there'll be things I'm doing right now, Alex, that in a year's time I'll look back and go, oh dear, like you know, you needed help with that, and that's okay, you know. We are all works in progress, so to speak. But it certainly it saved my life, really. I think I really do. It sounds a bit like cheesy and corny, but it's true.
Absolutely. It is incredible, the power of these things. And I mean, you made me think, in one of the things you're saying about the wanting to connect with other people and kind of understand, or try at least get some recognition that the way you're feeling, is it normal? Is it, are other people feeling like this? Obviously, your recent book, No Such Thing as Normal, kind of talks to that as well. Did you find other people have that same experience? I mean, is that a common theme that you found with other people?
Yeah, I mean, I've realized that the most normal thing in the world is to feel weird, right? And that's been the biggest relief, I think, is that I genuinely, I don't believe anyone exists without issues in their life. Some people have them to a lesser or a greater degree, but everyone, I believe everyone has a story to tell. And the human brain is fascinating. I mean, it's the most mysterious organ. Biologists are absolutely intrigued by it, and there's so much we don't know about it. And the thing that has made me better has been meeting other people who have the same thing as me, and actually realizing that I'm not a weirdo, I'm not a freak, I'm just a human being with a brain, and my brain has, for whatever reason, slightly misfired at certain points in my life, but it's made me realize that I wouldn't feel this sort of huge amount of shame if that was my, I have to wear like contact lenses to be able to see you. Do you know what I mean? I'm -7 or something, but I don't feel like this is like a moral failure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm much more sort of pragmatic about it, I guess, now. And that's because I've met loads of other people like me. And it just blew my mind, that there were the people that had the same intrusive thoughts as me, and and especially when I got sober as well, that there were other mothers out there who behaved the way I did because of alcohol, because I really thought I was the only one, and there was a huge shame about that. And I walked into into treatment, and the first person I met was another mother who lived a mile away from me, who'd been there all along, behaving just as in such a torturous way as I had, and we're to this day best friends. So it's a relief. It's a real relief. I'm not a bad person, I'm just a person with a brain that sometimes misfires, like everyone's.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's I think there's a real generosity in sharing it in the way you do, very publicly, and writing about it, because it does not everyone perhaps is able to articulate it or set things up. So it's I think that's it's a fantastic thing. And I wanted to also just go back, just in a very I guess a more straightforward way, talking about action and hope. You mentioned doing the marathon and walking, and is that something you find is positive for your mental health, just on a physical level, in terms of your well-being?
Yes, moving, I think, is I mean, listen, this isn't like a revolutionary thing. And in many ways, I spent much of my teens and 20s and early 30s I don't want the answer to be looking after myself. I want to get the exact combination of alcohol and drugs and be numb, right? And numb, and I don't want to feel anything, and that's going to work. And I certainly don't want to have to go out for a run. And of course, I had to realize that the experts were right, and if I wanted to feel good about myself, I had to look after myself. So for me, that does involve walking and running. I can't, unfortunately, I'm injured, so I can't run too much at the moment, but there's other things I can do. And we hear that phrase self-care, which I find really I don't think it should be I don't think looking after yourself should be a special thing. I think it should be ingrained in everyone's days. And I have to do 3 bits of exercise a week, or I'm not able to look after my daughter properly, or turn up and do my job, so it's like being of service to yourself to be of service to others, if that makes sense. And the other thing I've learned, sorry, and then I'll let you get on, but is that if I'm not getting my needs met, which sounds, again, I can't exist on any other sort of a plane. So So yeah, so walking, and it's real basics: walking, running, eating well, you know, getting a good night's sleep, not numbing out through alcohol and drugs anymore, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, I really love the themes that you've kind of brought up here around connection and the importance of connection. And actually, I kind of, there's a phrase that I've seen that maybe sounds a bit kind of abstract, but I really connect with, which is the idea of kind of self-realization, so self-development and service to all. And they're kind of two sides of the same coin, actually. You can't do one without the other. You can't serve other people without looking after yourself. Mm-hmm. But actually, you know, your own well-being will suffer unless you do support others and connect with others. So it's, yeah, what you said really resonates with me. And also, I just, yeah, I have to say I love your honesty and openness, because I think it's, as you say, so many people are experiencing these things. Everyone will be experiencing them in their own way. And if we don't talk about them, then we will all continue to suffer.